My guest today is Mark Hershberg, the author of The Career Toolkit, Essential Skills for Success That No One Taught You, and creator of an app called Brain Bump. Educated with 3 degrees from MIT, Mark has spent his career launching and fixing new ventures and startups, Fortune 500s, and academia. His work includes tracking terrorists and cyber criminals on the dark web, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, mobile enterprise platforms, big data solutions, and much more. He's even created over a dozen patents. Mark also helps create MIT's Career Success Accelerator, where he's taught for over 20 years. Let's see what makes Mark so buzzworthy. Welcome to the show, Mark. How you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on the show.
Hey, no problem. Thank you for taking the time. So where are you calling in from?
I'm based in Midtown Manhattan.
Manhattan. You don't have like a New York accent, so you must not be from Manhattan, or are
I
you
grew
from?
up part-time in New York, or half of my time, I should say, was in New York and East Coast, and half of it in the Midwest outside Chicago. So that going back and forth flattened my accent.
I love it. Now, before the show, we were talking about the fact that you have very interesting information about how the aliens built the pyramids. I'm very, very interested in this. Is it true? And do you have empirical evidence?
Who needs evidence when you've got a good conspiracy theory? I'm joking, of course, because I have multiple science and engineering degrees from MIT, and I am very much a let's use the scientific method and don't just believe everything you read on the internet.
I love it. I love it. Well, speaking of the internet, and we were also talking about content and how we're consuming content. And I was at this event in Tennessee the other day, and this guy Larry, I cannot remember his last name, but he was the founder and is still currently the CEO of E Entertainment. And one of the things that he talked about is how we're going to be getting pushed new micro entertainment, and we're going to have to start going back. We're actually going back to the days of the episodic stories in newspapers, but they're going to do it now with video and television. So instead of getting a whole episode of content for like a new show or storyline, you'll only get like 1 or 2 scenes of that, and then you have to pay for by the scene. And that sparked our conversation about how people are going to consume content. And I'm just going to go, wow, we are really gone like way down the way down in our attention span. Sorry, when we're paying for a couple minutes of content at a time. Can you talk to me about this transition of how we as just human beings are going to be consuming content in the next 10 years?
I agree with him completely that we are going to change how we engage with content. And the shifts are first, we're going to move to micro content. I'm not so excited about videos being only a few minutes, but that does seem to be the trend. So it's smaller sets of content, but it's also relevancy. Now, we can talk about this for consumer entertainment content. That's a whole
Mm-hmm.
other discussion. Given the audience here, I'm going to stick to more educational nonfiction content, the type that
Mm-hmm.
many of the listeners of this show tend to put out themselves. We're
Mm-hmm.
talking about podcast episodes, YouTube videos, blog posts, webinars, articles, books, lots of longer form content that we need to think about 2 things. First, how we can turn that into micro content, into smaller types of content, but then
Mm-hmm.
also how to deliver it. And here's what
Mm-hmm.
a lot of places are missing. There's all sorts of tools that can chop up your content for you,
Right.
and AI has made it easier. It's not about having more content. Yes, that helps, and there's some SEO benefits, but it's about delivering the content to the people in a relevant way.
Mm.
Consider the following question: how likely are you to remember the details of this episode in 2 weeks, even in 2 days? You're
Mm.
probably at the gym or driving to work or cooking dinner, and it's in the background, and hopefully you're getting great value. I've heard other episodes. I know there's great value, but you probably don't remember it long term. When you read a book, you're investing a good 6 hours. How much of that do you remember a month later? There's very limited
Mhm.
ROI on long content. And so we're going to come up with new techniques that we're going to talk about on the show. The key is, how do we make our content stickier for the audience to consume and for them to remember our brands? That's the goal.
So when we talk about micro content, I mean, like this podcast is 20 minutes long. Is this considered micro content, or is micro content the 30 to 90-second stuff that we've been seeing like in YouTube shorts and TikTok and stuff like that?
I would say it's the latter, just because 20 minutes, and I personally am not a fan of the shorter content. I'd rather listen to a full 20 minutes.
Right.
But 20 minutes is, I am giving focused attention for an extended period of time. It's
Mm-hmm.
not a quick hit. This
Mm-hmm.
is sitting down for a meal. Yeah, it
Mm-hmm.
might be a quick lunch at your desk, but it's doing lunch as
Fast
opposed to
casual. This is fast casual.
fast casual, right. But it's different from, I'm grabbing a candy bar or a snack on the go, which I'm going to
Right.
consume in 2 minutes just to get some calories, get some sugar or something in me. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's what we're really looking at, is that repeated micro content, because this takes focus,
Mm-hmm.
but the retention unfortunately isn't always very good when it's one and done.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. It's funny because like even you see a lot of this micro content when you're chopping up something like 20 minutes long. But then when you try to go then try to transition that into educational pieces. So, if we're using this type of interaction to showcase our ability to teach people things, right? And bring new ideas to the forefront. That's great. And the next step is then hopefully people are hearing what you have to say, and then they get curious about what else are you talking about. And now when they go over to that space where you're sharing all of this knowledge you have, and from your intro, I mean, you have a lot of it, right? So now when you're in that space, are you breaking up even the instructional pieces down to the micro content, or are you allowing that to stay in those 20 to 45-minute chunks?
No, you want it small. You can
Okay.
have larger chunks. So let's take a book as an example, because I'm
Okay.
sure much of your audience is books. Again, this applies to articles, webinars,
Mm-hmm.
podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
You have problems with a book or other type of media, that
Mm-hmm.
there is a disconnect in time and space. So,
Okay.
for example, in my book, there's a whole chapter on networking.
Mm-hmm.
There's both big picture, how should you approach networking, but then here are practical things you can do to be more effective. Where do you read it? Sitting at home. Where do you need it? 2 months later when you're at a conference. That's a
Right.
disconnect in time and space. And you're probably going to forget it between when you read it to when you need it. So, how
Mm-hmm.
can we make it available to you? Well, you can carry the book with you. You say, oh, yeah, I've got a Kindle, it's on my phone. But if you have to scroll through the phone and get it, it's not
Mm-hmm.
going to work. We all know a website that doesn't load in about 5 to 7 seconds loses traffic.
Yes.
Likewise, if they say, "Oh, it's in the book." Okay, hold on. Let me open my Kindle. I have to pull up the book, and now I have to Control F search, and wait, it's somewhere in here. You lost them. You
Mhm.
need to be able to get them your information in 5 to 7 seconds or less.
Mhm.
And that's why you need the micro content. So you need it to be easily accessible. And it's that retrieval part. That's what none of the tools really do well. It is the
Mhm.
chopping up and creation, lots of tools for that, fantastic tools, but the
Mhm.
retrieval. How many
Mhm.
times have you said, "Oh wait, I read something in the book," or "There's a social media post 2 weeks ago. Let me see if I can find it or remember it." That's where we struggle. So the tools in the future are tools that can help us efficiently organize and get that information. And
Mm.
how and when we deliver it, that is key.
And so this goes to something you talk about, like the difference between pushing information and pulling information. And you created an app that helps people with this, right?
That's right. I created the Brain Bump app. Now, it's a free app. It's free for content creators to put their content on it, for
Mhm.
authors and speakers and podcasters. It's free for people to use and get that content. Let's
Mm.
talk about how that works. It's an example of this pull media concept. It's not the only way to do it, but it's an
Mhm.
example that's free and available today.
Okay.
So we talked about those networking tips.
Okay.
that you need them different from where you read them. So when you're at the conference and you're saying, okay, I'm walking into the lobby of the hotel, I need those networking tips. In the Brain Bump app, you can have content, tips from my book, from other books, from other podcasts are all there. Now, a tip is typically about 1 to 4 sentences. It can be a little longer,
Mm,
but that's the key thing. It's things like hold your drink in your left hand because when it
mhm.
perspires, that won't ruin your right hand, which you use to shake hands. Right?
Right.
Simple tip. Like, oh yeah, right. I
Nice.
gotta remember to do that.
Right.
That's a quick hit, that level of tip. And so when you're standing in the lobby, you open the Brain Bump app and all the tips are tagged by topic. Think
Okay.
hashtags. Say,
Right.
I want networking tips or conference tips. So you open it up and there are the tips in front of you. Or maybe you saved off because you can
Mhm,
create favorites lists. Like here's my
mhm,
list of favorites.
mhm.
And within seconds, literally within a few seconds, you open the app, all the tips you need are right there at your fingertips. So you
Mm,
can get them when you want. The tips, by the
mm,
way, are all branded. So when they see the tip, they also see my book cover, my book name, and my name. So they see my brand
mhm.
with it. Now, the
Nice.
other way to do it, this is the just in time, but we
Mhm,
have as well, you can preset this. So if you are a new manager, you might
mhm,
want 9 a.m. each day, you get a push notification to your phone with a management tip. One of the things in a book that you've been reading, you go, oh, right, I'm about to start my day. Hey, here's one. Like, I should check in with my team, just ask them personally, like, how are you doing? Okay, I got
mm,
to remember. Maybe you're a new dad as well. So at 6 o'clock when you go home, you've got a tip from a parenting book. And now
mhm,
here's the key. If you got the parenting tip at 2 in the afternoon, your brain would say, no, 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 not now. It's not that
mhm,
the tip is wrong. It's 2 o'clock. I'm in work mode. This isn't
mm,
relevant. And
mhm.
when we look on social media or again, email lists, it's not the right time. But by
Right.
having the app say, I want this content at this time, you always get something relevant. And we get the benefit of spaced repetition. What we know, what's a proven technique to learn and retain happens, but it's
Mhm,
not like a flashcard app where you have to say, oh, I got to open the app and flip through it. It happens passively with no effort on your part, the consumer, and no
mhm.
effort on the part of the content creator because it automatically triggers and sends it.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of that type of information out there. There's this, it was a platform, and now I can't remember what it's called, dang it. But it was basically like ad lib podcasts. Something, what was it called? Something room. I can't remember it now what it is now, and I'm which is bugging me now. But basically you go in and you could just go into the app and then find out who's talking about what. And in any given time, there's these rooms that you just pop in and there's speakers and they're talking about
Oh,
stuff.
Clubhouse?
And huh? Clubhouse. Yeah, that's
Was
it.
it Clubhouse?
Yeah, it was Clubhouse. And I feel like that I think that people wanted that just in time information. And that was like this is before AI had, launched, right? So like that was probably the closest we had to the in time information because you could literally just go in there and like you said, like you're about to go do some networking and you wanted some tips on networking, you could literally just go into Clubhouse, go networking tips and find out somebody's talking about it at any given time. There's people just waiting to talk about whatever topic you're looking for, right? So I like the idea of AI helping us time out when we're going to get this information, so we don't have to go looking for it, which I love. And just so you know, it is now like 3 to 5 seconds before people start dropping off for a full load, and that's on their cell
I can
phones.
believe it's gotten faster. Yeah. But I think, it continues to be it's the relevancy, and this is key, and
Mm-hmm.
we talked about temporal relevancy when you're
Mm-hmm.
at the conference or when you're starting
Mm-hmm.
your day or walking home where you have a newborn child. There's
Mm-hmm.
also graphic relevancy. For example, imagine you are driving off to a holiday dinner with the in-laws, and for many people, that can be a stressful time. So
Mm-hmm.
imagine you have been listening to a podcast about how to deal with difficult in laws, or you're reading some blog posts on it. And maybe every time you cross the geofence to get to your in
Mm.
law's home, it pops up some advice. Hey, I see you're here. Here's the information you need at this location. And so by having that, not that you had to open and say, "Oh, yeah, I go find it." Yes, that's one option. But
Right.
if you have it triggered, so it can be triggered on location,
Oh,
it can be
wow.
triggered on time, it can be triggered on other externalities. For example, if you are tied to some type of biofeedback or medical device that says, "Oh, you're
Uh-huh.
stressed," it's going to say,
Oh,
"Okay, once your stress levels pass a certain level, we're gonna pop up some tips on how to de-stress."
right. Love it.
And
I
so we
love that.
haven't built that part in yet. It's covered by some of our patents, though, so it's on our roadmap.
Alright.
And the key is that you don't have to proactively do this. It will
Uh,
say, "This is what you need at this time, and I'm gonna
mm,
deliver small content." Because if you said, "Hey, you're stressed. Take 20 minutes to do this," that can be a lot for people. But just,
mm,
"Hey, here's a simple box breathing exercise."
mhm,
Or instead of going to my in-laws, "Okay, wait, pause. I have to spend 20 minutes out of the front lawn watching this video to know how to deal with
mhm,
them."
mhm,
Instead, it's, "Hey, here's 2 or 3 quick tips to keep in mind to remind you probably what you read or heard before, just that
mhm,
refresher, just that nudge," and that's why we call
mhm,
it brain bump. It's a nudge for your noggin.
mhm,
Get that little nudge
mhm.
when and where you need it.
I love it, I love it. I think that it's amazing how easy it is for us to get distracted nowadays, because I think there was a statistic out there that just came I don't know how long ago it happened, but, human beings now officially have a shorter attention span than goldfish.
Um, I'd put that up with the aliens and pyramids.
Ah, here it
Gold
comes.
Man already has been that is a myth that they only have a 10-second memory. Goldfish do have longer memories,
Okay.
and I'm thinking human memories are not that bad, but I'm
It's not
sure
the
you can do
memory,
some
it's the
experiment.
attention span, right? So, like, our memories are as good as however we've taken care of our brain, but our ability, like, so for me, I'm an ADHD kid with dyslexia. You know how easy it is to get me off topic? It's that's why I don't even do scripts very
I
well.
I question how you can measure the attention span of a goldfish. That seems
That's
a
well,
little
that's what I
tricky.
was wondering. I was like, well, if anybody knows, it's going to be the MIT guy. So so no, it's good to know that we've debunked that. You ever watch that MythBusters on Discovery Channel? So now we
Down to
can
the
say myth busted. Boom.
Well, we'd have to do an experiment, not just that's my
Yeah.
hypothesis. We'd have to do an experiment, and we'd have to see first, like they do in MythBusters, how do we test this?
Right.
How would we
Right.
test
How
the
would you
attention
test
span?
that? Right. That's amazing. So
But I
back
think
on
you
topic. Speaking of getting off topic, the so if I'm a creator, a content creator. So I am maybe a micro influencer with my business, and we all are now. If you're a B2B business owner or a service provider, you are now an authority. You are a micro influencer. People come to you for if they pay for your advice, folks, you are an influencer. You are influencing how people act. And when you get paid for it, you're a professional influencer. So now we have a responsibility to consistently be pushing out our content. And Mark is here showing us how there's other technologies that can actually help people pull that back after you pushed it to them. So if somebody hasn't, how can people approach creating content and keeping it organized so that when this type of technology that you've created becomes prevalent enough for them to say, yes, I can actually get this in the hands of enough people, where do they start?
you want to organize your content. You want to create that micro content, and there's
Hmm.
lots of tools to do it. One of my favorite happens to be Pod Intelligence, but there's
Okay.
plenty of other tools out there, and they can chop up videos and audio and text. You can even use these days a lot of AI tools to say, pull out the highlights from this article, pull out the highlights from this
Hmm.
chapter of my book. We have some of the
Hmm.
people putting their books on Brain Bump, just drop a chapter into Brain Bump, drop a chapter into AI and say, give
Hmm.
me 5 quotes from this chapter. And
Oh,
boom, it
wow.
does it really well. So you can pull those out. You can use lots of tools to pull it out. And then you want to save that off somewhere and organize it by topic. Just make some notes. So if it's text, just put it into a spreadsheet and you'll put in here's that takeaway, here's that tip. And here, this is about leadership. This is about home woodworking, whatever your expertise is. And you got it saved off. And now the key is because you talked about something really important. When we have evergreen content, we have to continually put out content. But the problem with evergreen is we have this balance between, okay, well, I said that a few months ago. So do I start repeating myself? And some of my regular followers say, "Yeah, you keep saying the same thing. This is repetitive." And you have to just keep, oh, okay, I'm just going to recycle this. Or do you put out new stuff? But hey, your stuff is evergreen. It's still valid. It's not like your leadership tip is suddenly different this year. And so the tools that we're going to see, and this is what Brain Bump does, but again, we're going to see more tools like this, will do that continual recycling. Because when you think about email or
Mm,
social media,
mhm,
or even things like a blog or a podcast, it's
mm,
ordered chronologically. And when someone starts listening to your podcast, they're less likely to say, let me hear that episode from 2 years ago. They think it's stale. But if
mm,
you can now recycle the content, or in this case, your micro content, not by time, but by topic. And that's why
mm,
having topic tags are really key as you organize your content. Recycle continually by content, then it can come up without effort on your part and stay relevant to the people who need that particular content at that time.